just made me really dizzy. Hello, my name is Trish from Nosedive's channel. It is another month, it's another video. We're going to look at all the films and TV shows that I've watched in the month of August. Just before I do that, I just want to say that I have a letterbox. I've had it for like a few months now, I'm pretty sure. But I keep forgetting to like post on there after I watch a film. But I've tried to do more frequent reviews now. And also, I watched a lot of TV shows this month. So the first thing I watched this month was Lightyear. I really don't think this is Pixar's strongest movie. It's definitely the weakest Toy Story related film, I guess. I really like the first half of this film with like Buzz trying to reach light speeds and like time progressing forwards every time he lands back on Earth. Very emotional first half. And it was a really great concept and it's really well done. And then the second half just got really boring. I like Buzz as a character. I think Chris Evans was a great voice for him as well. But overall, I don't think it's that great. It's not very rewatchable. The only great part about it is like the first 30 minutes. I think I'd give it a 5.5. That might be a bit too low. And then I watched Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. I just wanted some like light entertainment. I put on Prime Video because they had a new user interface. Yes, I watched this film. It wasn't really light. It dealt with a lot of very dark topics like the end of the world, everyone accepting their fate. I also watched this one because it had Steve Carell in it. I like Steve Carell, he's one of my favourite actors. I like the concept of this film. It presents like the end of the world realistically most of the time. I think the comedy works very well and the conversations between lots of the characters in this film are just really emotional. I really like Keira Knightley and Steve Carell's relationship, even though there's a massive age gap between them. That being said, there is the odd bit of dialogue and just some weird bits in the film that just don't fit. I think the editing is sometimes odd at points as well, and the music and cinematography of this film I felt could have been improved. I don't know how to feel about not seeing the asteroid in this film as well. I feel like you should be able to see it in the sky. I think it works really well at the end, not seeing the asteroid, because it's such an emotional moment, a really great ending. I just feel like a lot of stuff in this film could have been improved. All around, it's a fun, bittersweet watch. I'd give it a 7.5. And then I watched Prey. I watched the first 3 Predator films last year. I thought the first one was really great. I thought the second one was not the best. And I thought the third one was a bit generic. I haven't watched The Predator, but I heard that film was supposed to be like really bad. But I think this one is like a really big return to form for the franchise. I was going to watch the Comanche version of this film, but I started watching it and the side characters were speaking English and it was like dubbed over in Comanche. And I don't like when things are dubbed over and it's not matching their lip movements. So I just watched the English version. I love the action in this film and there's a great use of long takes in this film. I really like the main character as well. I like how she adapts like the Predator does and she finds ways to take down the Predator. The cinematography is just really great. There's so much tension built with the Predator as well. I think this film is the best the Predator has looked. I do find the line delivery to be weird and dodgy at points, but luckily there's not a lot of dialogue in this film, so I can't overlook it. Overall, I think this is a really great Predator film. I don't think it has as much rewatchability as the original Predator, because that film does have Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, and it does have that 80s flair that I just really like. Overall, I think I'd give this film a solid 8. And then I finished watching Jessica Jones season 1. I wanted to watch more like Marvel Netflix shows. If you remember last year, I watched all 3 seasons of Daredevil. Really enjoyed them. I really should have watched The Defenders in between season 2 and 3, but I watched The Defenders this month. I'll get to it. But I really enjoyed this season. I absolutely love Kilgrave as a villain. He's played like so well by David Tennant. He's so threatening and scary. He's probably one of my favourite Marvel villains. I just wish we saw more of him in like the first half of the season. I like Jessica Jones as a character as well. How she's like a private investigator, but she's also like a superhuman. And I like her like relationship with Luke Cage that builds throughout the season as well. The thing I don't like about this season is Hogarth. I think her subplot is just really weird and really doesn't need to be in the season. There's so much focus on a divorce and she just kind of disappears in the latter half of the season as well. I also found the Simpson subplot at the end of the season to be really weird and rushed as well, with him like getting these drugs which make him like go really crazy. I just don't think it worked that well, but it did lead to some great action scenes near the end. Overall, really love Kilgrave. I think Jessica Jones is a really great protagonist. I'd probably give it a solid 8.5. And then I went to The Defenders. I skipped Luke Cage and Iron Fist because I've heard Luke Cage is supposed to be like pretty mid, and I've heard Iron Fist is not supposed to be that great. And they're like 14 episodes each. I just don't want to devote so much time to those 2 seasons. I haven't heard the best things from this show as well, but like I said, it does tie into Daredevil season 3. I thought it was pretty good for the most part, and I thought the action scenes were really great. I love all of the Daredevil stuff with Matt as well, and there's some really great scenes. And obviously all the Daredevil stuff feels like it's just ripped straight out the show. I thought the Jessica Jones stuff was okay as well, and I really liked Jessica Jones' relationship with Matt as well. The thing I didn't care for that much in this show was the Han subplot. I thought it was a pretty good plot in season 2 of Daredevil, but I just don't think it works in this season. It did lead to some really great scenes with like Stick, and obviously action scenes in that. I don't know how to feel about the rebirth of Elektra. Sigourney Weaver brings her back to life, and yeah, she's a different person, but then she like regains her memories. I just don't like it that much. It was more dialogue based than I was expecting it to be as well, and it was just a bit boring for the most part. All around there are some great moments in this show, like little interactions between like all 4 of them, and all the Daredevil stuff is really great as well. But I just found it to be really underwhelming. Overall, I think I'd give it a 7. And then I watched The Smiling Friends Go to Brazil. I was debating on whether to review this or not, since it is 11 minutes long. I watched season 1 back in January, obviously. I really loved the show. I thought the comedy was really unique and different to other shows. The animation style is really great as well. This special, just like season 1, is extremely funny. I like how it goes absolutely nowhere and they don't get further than the airport restaurants. But overall, I just don't think I'd rate it, since it is like a 10-minute episode, and it can kind of be added on to that first season as just like an extra. And then I watched Elvis. I'm not the biggest Elvis fan, but I really like this film. It had just so much style and flair. I think the sound mixing is a big standout for this film as well, and I like how like tracks like merge into each other and songs like remix. The audio and the visual of this film go together so well. I think Austin Butler does a great performance as Elvis, and it just feels like really tragic seeing his downfall in this film, and it doesn't shy away from showing you how bad those last years for Elvis really were. I don't know how to feel about Tom Hanks in this film and his performance as Tom Parker. I do see complaints of his acting in this film and how it's a bit weird and his accent's weird, but it didn't take me out of the film. Overall, I just think it's a great watch, and I think it might be the best biopic I've watched. I might need to rewatch Rocketman. I'd probably give it an 8.5 out of 10. And then I decided to watch my first anime.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the?
I watched My Hero Academia season 1. I've joined the dark side, but it was on Netflix and it looked interesting. I wanted to give it a watch. I debated on whether to watch the sub or dub. I ended up going for the dub because there is a lot of vast dialogue in this show, and there's probably going to be a lot that I'm missing if I'm watching it in sub. I like Deku or Azuki as a character and how he develops in the season from like an easily upset child mega wimp to being like a super powered leader. He still has that wimpy side to him, but I like how he grows over the season. I don't think this is the best looking anime that I've seen from Shut up! The action scenes are really where the show shines, and they're just so great and unique. I did kind of become sick of all like the inner monologues from all the characters in this season, and I did feel like as the season went on there was like less and less focus on Deku, who's supposed to be the main character. Some of the dialogue is just weird and cheesy as well, but I guess that's what anime is about. It might have sounded better in Japanese, but like I said, I chose the dub. Like they say, I like the supporting characters of this show as well, and I like All Might as a mentor figure for not just Deku but all of the class, and I like his like weakness playing a big part in the story as well, how he can't stay his true form for a long time and has to keep all these secrets. There's also a lot of humorous moments in this show as well. For my first anime, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'd probably give it an 8.5. And then I watched I'm Groot. Like Smiling Friends Go to Brazil, I don't think I'm going to rate this since it is 5 4-minute shorts. But they're cute, they're enjoyable. That's all I've really got to say about it. And then I watched Black Mirror. I didn't know how to approach reviewing the show since like it's an anthology series. So I've decided I'd do quick reviews on each episode. I did skip some episodes as well because I'm only watching the episodes that are highly rated. I watched the National Anthem. It was not really what I was expecting for the first episode of Black Mirror because it looks like it's set in like in an alternate present day rather than the future. I really enjoyed the concept though, and the conflict the Prime Minister goes through, and if he should go through public humiliation just to save a cherished figure. Saying that isn't really original and it is pretty boring compared to the rest of the show. So overall, I give this episode a 7. Then I watched 15 Million Merits. This is more of what I was expecting from a Black Mirror episode. I like how it presents everyone as like so corrupt, and the singing contest aspect of it was just a great way to show like the decline of society. I didn't expect Daniel Kaluuya to be in this episode as well, like before his like breakout role in Get Out. And his performance is like a real standout in this episode. Everything in this episode just feels like really off, and the ending is like really heartbreaking. Overall, I'd give this episode a solid 8.5. And then I watched the entire history of You. Again, really great concept, like the ability to play back like your memory through like an implant. The declining relationship between these two people due to this is just really, again, heartbreaking to watch. Just some really emotional acting. We get to see Jodie Whittaker pre-Doctor Who in this episode as well. Then I watched Be Right Back. I feel like I'm saying this too much, but again, really great concept. It's probably the most like eerie episode out of them all, and it presents like grief in like a really unique way. Just seeing the relationship between these two characters and like their ups and downs, and like eventually leading to like the woman realizing that technology will never replace her husband. It's just great, and the ending feels like really open-ended and very terrifying. Overall, I give this a solid 8.5. Then I watched White Bear. I love how this episode makes us root for the main character and like be just as confused as her before like eventually realizing that she's a horrible person and she had a brain wipe this whole time. It just really conflicts you as a viewer as well, like whether it's like morally okay to do something like that to a woman and not just lock her up in jail. I love the acting as well, and everything was just revealed so well. It's probably my favourite episode so far. I'd probably rate it a solid 9. Then I watched White Christmas. I love the reveals and character development in this episode, and I love how everything ties together at the end. The reveals and twists of this episode are just perfectly done as well, and the writing is just so good for this episode. The acting, especially from the main two leads, are really great, and it just leads to some like truly heartbreaking moments. I think it's definitely beat White Bear as my favourite episode. I think this is a 10 out of 10 episode. And then in between my Black Mirror binge, I watched Trainwreck, Woodstock 99. I found this to be like a really interesting documentary about the events of this festival gone wrong. I didn't know a lot about this festival. I heard the name, but I didn't hear like actually what went on and how awful it actually was. I like the first-hand footage of everything going on at the festival as well, captured by like one of the people being interviewed. I love the people being interviewed as well, and how they have like different views on the concerts. Just a really enjoyable 3-part documentary. Overall, I think I'll give this a 9. And then I watched Nosedive. I really enjoyed this episode and the concept of like people having like individual ratings and how it like represents how people view them. I like how we follow this woman who aims high and wants to get like the highest score, and then ends up backfiring on her. But I found her downfall to be like kind of satisfying because she's becoming more like a human and less like a robot who has to be like happy all of the time. It's also one of those Black Mirror episodes where it has like a semi-happy ending with the main character getting in jail but also seemingly meeting the love of her life. So overall, I really enjoyed this episode. I think it's really well done. I'd probably give this one a 9. And then I watched Playtest. I feel like this episode was a little too mean-spirited, and it also faked out the audience like one too many times as well. I do like the main character and his charm, and the scenario it was put in was really great as well, but I was just waiting for it to go wrong. It was very predictable, and it was ultimately pointless in the end because he just ended up dying, and the whole like majority of the episode was basically in his head. I do really like the horror themes throughout this episode though, and the concept of turning fears into like reality through like a video game. So overall, I think I'd give this episode a solid 7.5. Then I watched Shut Up and Dance. This is probably the most upsetting and mean-spirited episode in the whole of the show so far, but unlike the last episode, I think it works in its favour. Like the first episode of this show, this feels like something that could very well much happen in the present day, which makes it all the more frightening. Really like the concept. I don't really like the main lead though. He's kind of a bit of a wimp, but very great ending, very dark, really great concept. I would give this a solid 8. Then watch San Junipero. I found this episode to be extremely confusing. Maybe I just have a small brain, but I found the two main protagonists of this episode to be really great, and the chemistry is really amazing. I love the 80s period setting for the first half of this episode as well, and the music choices are really great as well. But when things started to become weird and Black Mirror-y. I just really became confused. I didn't understand what was going on. It did have a lot of emotion to it, and the concept from what I understood from it was really interesting. But I just found it to be one of the least engaging episodes of the show. I know this is one of the most like highest rated episodes of the show as well, but I wasn't feeling it. I'm sorry, I'll give it a 7. And then I watched Men Against Fire. I think this is like a big step down from the rest of the show in my opinion. Some of the technology advancements was just like a rehash from previous episodes as well. I like the main character and how he like has like more of a heart than everyone else. But when it was like revealed that his like eyes glitched out and his implant glitched out, it just felt like a little bit cheap. I do like the conversation between like the CEO of the like whole company and the main character and the big reveal and him like having to replay those moments from at the start of the episode back again with actually real people. It's absolutely like horrible. Just some great emotion. For some reason throughout this episode, like there was this like woman in his dreams as well. I thought that was gonna like go somewhere, but I don't think it did. That was just really weird as well. Overall, I think it's my least favourite episode of the show. I'd probably give it a 6. And then I watched Hated in the Nation. I like how tense this episode was, with something as small as a bee causing so much chaos. I like how it starts out as a murder mystery and then eventually leads to the two main characters like trying to save like the soon to be murdered. Some really great visuals with the robotic beads as well, and Benedict Wong is in this episode. It's an 8. And then I finished watching Better Call Saul Season 6 Part 2. I mean, I can't express how phenomenal and satisfying the ending for the show was. I love how the events post Breaking Bad became more of a focus as the season progresses, and it just leaves all of the characters off in a perfect place. Most notably with Saul transforming back into Jimmy again and confessing all of his crimes. Whilst Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul both have a rise and a fall, the fall of like Jimmy eventually leading to him spending life in jail felt surprisingly satisfying, and it just feels like a happy ending with the relationship between Kim and Jimmy being restored, and everything just ends perfectly. I still think Breaking Bad is a better show though, but this is a definite 10 out of 10. And then we go back to Black Mirror with U.S.S. Callister. It's nice to see Jesse Plemons play Seaon rather than Todd. I like his character, like how he treats everyone in like the real world really nicely, and he's like really shy, but then when he enters his little like brain world, he becomes a really horrible person, and he's really scary and threatening. I like the way like the DNA computerized versions of everyone are presented in this episode as well, and how they try and figure out a way to get out of this guy's game. And very rare for Black Mirror, it ends happily with the DNA computerized versions of these characters escaping, and Jesse Plemons' character dies. I don't really think he deserved to die, but he dies. Overall, I think I'll give this episode a solid 9 because it's a great concept, great execution. Then I watched Hang the DJ. I like the whole like automatic dating aspect of this episode, and the chemistry between the two leads are great. Again, very rare for Black Mirror. It ends on like a high with the two characters getting together, escaping the dating system. But I do think it ends a bit prematurely, and things to be fleshed out a little bit more, so I'd give it an 8. And then watch Black Museum. This feels a little bit like White Christmas, with stories being told inside a story, and I really like it for that. But I do think White Christmas did it better in terms of like pacing and bringing everything together. I do like the museum guy as a character, and how like with each story he tells, it becomes like less and less likable. And the end was really unexpected for me, and yeah, I really enjoyed it, so I'd give this another 9. And then the final Black Mirror episode that I watched was Smithereens. This is probably the most dialogue-based episode of the show that I've watched. The acting from the lead in the show is really great, and it's probably some of the best in the series, but I don't think the episode came together as well as I would have liked it to. I think the concept is really great, and it leads through like a really slow burn episode, but I do feel like the pacing is off at some points, especially when everyone's on the phone and that. It just becomes a little bit boring. I think the second half of the show is like really where it shines through though, and it has a lot of emotional weight to it. I'm kind of annoyed that I left on that cliffhanger though, where you don't know who was shot, but overall really good episode. Not the best episode. I'd probably give it a 7. So that's it for Black Mirror. Next I watched the Cuphead show season 2. I watched season 1 back in February, and I think this season is a pretty good improvement, where a lot of like season 1 episodes felt like boring filler. A lot of episodes in the season are really entertaining, and there's like little references to other episodes in episodes. I feel like the animation in this season is much more improved as well, and it's much more expressive from characters. It feels a lot like SpongeBob, job. I did find myself laughing a lot in the season as well. It's a really funny show. I think this season didn't have enough Devil for me though, as he was one of my favourite characters from the first season. I'm pretty sure there's only like 2 episodes dedicated to him, and I wish there would have been more. But overall, great improvement on the first season. I think I'd give this one an 8. And then I watched Top Gun Maverick. I haven't seen the original Top Gun, but I thoroughly enjoyed this film nonetheless. I like Tom Cruise's performance as Maverick in this film, and how he deals with training these group of pilots, and like the personal grudges he has with some of them. I think the writing is really great as well, and it leads to an emotional ending. The cinematography is really great as well, especially with the shots of like everyone flying their aircrafts. It's just a really solid action movie with some really tense moments and a really great final act. It has lots of rewatchability to it as well. I think I'll give it a solid 9. It has grown on me a lot since I've watched it as well, I think. And now I've finally got round to watching every British person's favourite show, The Inbetweeners, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think we should review this show as a whole rather than season by season, because this show is really short. It's only 6 episodes per season. I like how Will narrates the whole show, and I feel like the narration adds so much to it. Obviously, I love the main 4 and their contrasting personalities, and I like seeing all of the sticky situations they get themselves into. I expected this show to be like more gross out than I was expecting, and whilst there is a lot of disgusting moments, I don't think it went too far just for the sake of grossing out the audience. I really like the side characters as well, like everyone's parents, and obviously Mr. Gilbert. I do think there can be some like really low level humour in this show, and there is some weird editing choices here and there, but overall really British, really fun, really funny. I give it an 8. And then obviously Inbetweeners Movie. I like how this is like a continuation of the show as everyone leaves for university. I feel like this is an improvement with editing and cinematography from the show as well, and there's some really great long shots as well. I like how it catches us up on the group. I don't really like how it retcons Simon moving to Wales, but I can forgive it. I like the new setting of them going abroad and all of the characters that they meet there. I do think there's a few problems with the writing in this film though, and some characters in the group are just written to be more stupid than they actually are, and I just think this film isn't as funny as the show. I did kind of lose interest in like the third act when they got to the boat party as well. So overall, I think I'll give this 6.5. And then obviously Inbetweeners 2, I think this is a great improvement on the last film. The cinematography is surprisingly improved again, and there's some surprisingly stylized moments in this film, especially near the start with Jay's email and all of his lies about Australia. I like the Australian setting over the Greek setting as well, and I just found myself to be laughing more in this film. There's so many iconic moments as well, like Will singing by the fire and the water slides incident. Overall, I think this is a really fun film. I think it's a really great improvement over the first. Much more memorable, much more enjoyable. I think I'd give this a 7.5. And then the final thing that I watched this month was The Hangover. I picked up this film on Blu-ray and Sex because I wanted to give it a watch. And after watching it, I can say that it's a really fun comedy film. The concept of these like 4 guys accidentally like drugging themselves at a bachelor party and not remembering anything from the night before is a really great concept, and leaves some really great moments with them like figuring out what happened the night before. There's just some really funny moments to come out of this film. I was expecting some like more outlandish cinematography though, especially from Todd Phillips, who I was surprised to find out had actually directed Joker, which is a very stylized film. But overall, really fun film. I think I'd give it an 8. So that's all of the films and TV shows that I watched in the month of August. I'm currently watching My Hero Academia season 2. I am fearing that I'm becoming a weeb. I just enjoyed this first season so much, and I wanted to see where it's going to go from there. I'm only like 5 or 6 episodes into the season, but I'm enjoying it so far. I do think there's a lot of focus on the Olympic event. I can't remember what it's called, and I feel like they are dragging it out a bit, but I think it makes up for it by giving us a lot of character development from a lot of characters. I do feel like there's an overuse of flashbacks in this season though. There's some moments in episodes where it just like it flashes back to the last episode, which I like literally just saw, but yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. I am also watching Miss Marvel Attorney at Law. I don't really like it. After Miss Marvel, I just wasn't looking forward to any Marvel shows. So my expectations were already low. I was actually debating on whether to actually watch it at all. I found the first episode to be okay, but the editing was like really weird in some places. And like a lot of dialogue said by Jennifer Walters just didn't make her that much of a likeable lead. It's also like the fourth wall breaking moments that I know are in the comics, but they just didn't work that well in the show. I'm only up to the 2nd episode now, but it hasn't got better. I just hope it does. So that's it for today's video. If you did like it, please leave a like. If you didn't like it, then give a dislike. I'll see you in the next video.